Before we get to our show, here is a podcast we think you're going to love.
Hey, Sasha.
Hey, Courtney.
Where can you get hot takes about ghosts, cryptids, farts, and cats?
I don't know, where?
On our podcast, Spoop Hour.
Oh, that's right.
Each week, we talk about the things that spook us out and we laugh through our fear.
You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Spoop Hour, and you can listen to our podcast on iTunes, Podbean, or really anywhere else that you get your podcasts. Feel free to also drop us a line at spoophour@gmail.com.
We want to hear about your ghosts.
Thanks.
Welcome, 5 listeners.
Hello.
I'm Samantha, and I'm here with Liz.
My name is Liz.
And we're also here with...
We have a special guest today.
Yeah, my name's Rochelle.
Friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod.
And resident history buff, Rochelle. They already know you, basically. We talk about you all the time.
You might know what episode this is because we've been complaining about it since the very beginning.
Dun, dun, dun.
It's an Alcatraz situation.
Yeah.
We've come to call mysteries that we don't give a shit about Alcatraz situations. And this is the ultimate Alcatraz situation because it's Alcatraz.
It's actually Alcatraz.
Rochelle, how do you feel about Alcatraz as a mystery?
I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you like us and you just don't give a shit about Alcatraz?
I love history. I can find almost anything I enjoy about any topic. This is a hard one.
So how do you feel about being brought onto a podcast
I'm like,
to talk about a mystery you also don't care about because we don't care about
It
it?
started from talking kind of to both of you guys, but also Liz about like you guys don't like some of the war stories and like the love stories and that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, sure. And then they're like, oh, or Alcatraz. I'm like,
Look,
great.
we didn't have a war story one. We have Alcatraz.
I
I'm sorry.
promise, as payment for making you talk about Alcatraz, we'll find an episode with some awesome history in it.
So yeah, but I was like,
Anything
yeah,
else?
That's fun. I really like a jail that was open for 29 years. That's enough to go on. Yeah.
It's an island.
Yeah, it's an island.
Some movies have been shot there.
They pretended that the bay was full of sharks. It wasn't.
That is totally a lie. I would tell somebody though. Oh, there's sharks out there. Don't
Yeah,
lie.
you would tell all the prisoners.
They have laser beams on the top of their heads. Like
There's
it's pretty legit.
man-eating sharks all over
We give them
there.
a taste of human blood every sunset.
Yeah, why not?
They're hunting for you.
You tell little kids about Tooth Fairy and other things. You tell prisoners about
Sharks in the
human
bay.
sharks. Yeah,
Rochelle, would you visit Alcatraz? Because they give tours. It's like a national park now.
I would visit it now that I've actually like looked it up. Some of the people that were there, and I was like, okay, that'd be fun, but I wouldn't go spend thousands of dollars. It's an international tour.
Yeah.
You would have to be in San Francisco, and the plans you had fell through,
Yes.
and then you go. I guess I'll go to Alcatraz.
And it's a nice day, so I might as well be by the water.
Sure.
Everything the stars would have to align to get you to go on the Alcatraz tour.
You'll probably see a pelican.
Yeah, because
That alone would be worth it.
But yeah, it is the island of the Pelicans. It's just a really cool little island, but they just put a really shitty place on top.
Yeah,
It is a shame they
did
ruined a
ruin
perfectly good island by
good
putting
island
a prison on
that
it.
they don't even use anymore.
No.
But it's not my favorite one. Like out of the two, because people always talk about like Alcatraz as being the rock or the big place where they have all this cool stuff. It's not my favorite. There's one on the East Coast that's like by the Keys that was like had Fort Jefferson and all this other stuff that has the history you wish Alcatraz had.
Oh. So we
Which
really brought you in for the wrong episode.
We did.
As the professional.
Okay, bye.
That would be, and then I'd look at Samantha and be like, I don't want to talk about this. And
Do you want to?
no, and we would just
done.
ended the podcast. Bye.
No, it has interesting stuff into it. It's just what
You know
the
something?
intrigue, the movie kind of style thing of good things happening, like so many different stuff to pick from. It's not as much as you'd like.
Well, Unsolved Mysteries found enough material to do a 2-hour episode about
Oh
it.
my
Our
god.
live episode, 'cause it looks like it was
so long.
It was a little bit painful.
even edited down for time.
Robert Stack wore a pretty sweet parka.
Yeah, okay. Robert
Yes.
Stack, I'm going to just jump ahead. Thumbs up for outfit.
He was dressed like he was on an Arctic excursion.
Samantha-
How cold was it there that day?
You finally get something you've been waiting for.
A turtleneck.
Yes!
Yeah.
He has a sweet turtleneck and a pretty awesome, gigantic parka over the top.
It was, kind of timeless parka, though.
That's true.
It wasn't like neon and,
It was a nice blue.
Right.
Nice shade of blue.
It wasn't like hilariously 80s.
It was a classic man.
Yeah.
Parka.
And he had a very nice trench coat, nice black trench coat. So let's get that out of the way. Thumbs up for rubber stack outfits. That's
Liz, as much as you want to skip through
Done.
the entire episode.
yeah. Can you tell?
We
no,
can't-
let's rate on mysteriousness. I was like, oh, what do you know? We're all done. Don't have to talk about Alcatraz anymore.
We're done.
10-minute podcast. That'd be interesting.
Well, should we get into it?
I guess.
So here's what this episode, this 90-minute
It's so long.
shit show, ends up being about 6 sections. So they give us the history. They talk about 2 famous figures who were housed at Alcatraz. Then they talk about the escape. After that, they go through theories and potential evidence one way or another, whether or not they made it off or not. And then Unsolved Mysteries does their own investigation.
They clearly thought that was cool.
It was a
hot shit.
Mythbusters style investigation.
That has to have been hot shit at that time.
They had a
Yeah.
It
fucking
was still
blimp.
kind of cool, but it was kind of cool like when Mythbusters would do it decades later. So the fact that they're like, no, we're prime time, we're investigating. You're like,
Yeah.
They were a bit ahead of their time, I would say. And it was quite the production. We'll get to it. But there was a blimp
Yeah.
and a bunch
there
of
were shots.
giant boats. Yeah.
And
Like-
Robert Stack clearly not wanting to get on a boat
Yeah.
because he was like still up at the prison, like, see you there, some other woman.
Yep.
Yeah, he doesn't want to mess up his hair. His
That's
carpet
true.
is exquisite. He doesn't want salt water on it. Are you insane?
That's true.
That's
His
true.
clothes were worth preserving.
That's true. So Robert Stack opens this episode by saying Alcatraz, the Rock. For over 29 years, the nation's most notorious prison, a home for such master criminals as Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly, and its Birdman, Robert Stroud. Alcatraz stands in the middle of San Francisco's icy cold bay, a treacherous moat
Shark-free bay.
that was the best guarantee that nobody would successfully escape, and nobody did until June 11th, 1962. On that night, 3 men broke out of their cells and vanished into the waves on a homemade raft. John Anglin, his brother Clarence, and Frank Morris, the brilliant mastermind of the escape, were never seen again. 10 days later, authorities discovered pieces of the raft. It had broken up at sea. The 3 convicts appeared to have swum for it. Did they make it? The debate continues.
It literally does, because we're talking about it right now.
It sure does.
Robert Stack foresaw the future where the debate would continue on this very podcast.
Robert Stack understands the mysteries.
Well, doesn't Robert Stack like
Listen to
knows
this.
all?
Listen
Yeah.
to this podcast from heaven. Is that what you're going to
Yeah,
say?
He
Yeah,
did.
there
He
he
did
is.
give us a 5-star iTunes.
If
review.
you look
Yeah.
on
I don't know where
iTunes,
that
you'll
came
see
from.
that
Yeah.
he's been listening.
I'm not saying that Robert Stack is taking requests for iTunes reviews. I wouldn't know what he's listening to in heaven. But I am saying if maybe you drop us a 5-star review and then give us your name of your podcast, then maybe Robert Stack will give it a listen. I don't know what he's gonna do, but
It's just a theory.
it could happen. Maybe.
It's a mystery.
So, opening the show, they interview a couple people, or a couple people are on camera saying things, including Philip Bergen, captain of the guards from 1946 to 1955. He says if they went into the water with primitive flotation equipment, they would have drowned within 30 minutes. They would have succumbed to hypothermia and drowned. Leon Whitey Thompson, a former inmate at Alcatraz, said, I'd stake my life on
Whitey.
it. Their bones are out there. And then
Bones are out there.
Whitey had some good one-liners in this
Whitey
episode.
would be the guy you're like, you're the creepy guy at the bar, but tell me your stories.
Yeah,
Whitey
for sure.
and all of his stories are 100% bullshit.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, but that's why you buy him a drink.
Yeah.
That's true.
To hear,
Here's a drink.
to hear
Just
that
keep it going.
bullshit.
Entertaining, but bullshit. Patrick Mahoney, who is captain of the Alcatraz launch, said, I felt that they didn't make it, but I thought we'd find a body. We never found a body. And then Crazy Don DeNevy, author and teacher, says, I think they made it. If you call the Bureau of Prisons today, they will tell you that no one escaped from Alcatraz.
Yeah, that guy had quite a look.
That guy was a character?
Oh, yes. We'll get more into what he talked about later,
Oh my
but
god, yeah.
yeah.
Did you ever like take an egg for Easter and decorate it to look like a face? I'm bringing up that question for no reason. Not because
Are you
Dawn.
saying that's what Don's head looks like?
Maybe.
If you would have taken that egg and then put 2 cotton balls on each side to represent his hair,
And some googly eye glasses.
yeah, that's this guy.
I wrote down. Turns out a lot of white guys have opinions about this.
Yeah, there's
100.
Opposed to us not giving a shit, these people were like, no, they lived, or definitely they died in the icy deep.
I do like there was a nice super generalization. No, this had to happen in 30 minutes. Are you this medical? Nope, this is my statement.
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Oh,
be dead.
okay. Yeah, that's...
Unlike this
Can't compare
episode
it
of
now.
Unsolved Mysteries that goes on for 90 minutes.
They would have been dead long before we get to the...
I realized when I was watching this, I must have just like turned, like, I think they said 90 minutes and I was like, next episode. I don't think I even watched it.
I watched this episode with my fiance Travis because I should have thought to ask him his theories about Alcatraz because he's watched several documentaries. Being the white guy that he is, apparently they all love this shit. And
That's just a theory that we have, but yeah.
I believe he thinks that they made it, but I don't remember why. I think I just zoned out the entire time we were watching this the first time. So
It's just, you could take a nap. There's so many more important things you could do with that 90 minutes.
we should have come up with a list of better things to do besides watch this episode.
We can brainstorm as we talk.
Well, even like the Amazon edited version, it's, I think, maybe an hour, cutting out all the like superfluous live action
Commercials
stuff
or
we're doing.
whatever they did.
But you're also like, it feels like 90 minutes.
Yeah, it was a long hour. I think I took a little break. It's like I need to go get some snacks and move around.
Have a couple LaCroix.
I swear I've been watching this for days.
Oh my god, I know. So next they talk about the history of Alcatraz.
So this was actually, I thought, the most interesting part.
So it was a lot of things before it was Alcatraz. In this Unsolved Mysteries episode, they pretty much just talk about it from when it became a federal prison because it was acquired by the United States Department of Justice on October 12th, 1933 and became a federal prison on August 1934. It was designed to hold prisoners who continuously caused trouble at other federal prisons. At 9:40 a.m. on August 11th, 1934, the first batch of 137 prisoners arrived at Alcatraz, arriving by railroad from the United States Penitentiary in Leavenworth, Kansas. Before being escorted to Alcatraz, they were handcuffed and put into high-security coaches and guarded by some 60 special FBI agents, U.S. Marshals, and railway security officers.
Yeah, and they brought that up in the episode. They literally just bring the whole
Train
car in there because they didn't trust them to.
That's crazy.
To get out
escape.
anywhere. Yeah, these were they seems like some bad dudes, I guess.
Well, it's a lot of people from Leavenworth. Leavenworth is where, like, Panzeram, there's big names that were criminals at the time that usually would end up at Leavenworth. So if they're taking them from Leavenworth and bringing them to Alcatraz.
They did not want these guys
Except
getting out.
I can't remember who. One person had stolen $16
Yeah, it was a mix.
from a building that had a post office, and he got 25 years.
And ended up at Alcatraz.
And I ended up at Alcatraz.
And then
God.
a couple of the people we talked about, they got trying to hold people up with a fake gun. That's how they ended up and got into more trouble while
I was like,
in
if you stole $16 and got 25 years, I hope you escape. That's bullshit.
Yeah, that is bullshit.
if you're good enough to escape.
Yeah.
So most of the prisoners were notorious bank robbers and murderers. The prison initially had staff of 155, including the first warden, James A. Johnson, and associate warden, J.E. Shuttleworth. Both considered to be Iron Men, the staff were highly trained in security,
What does that
but not
mean?
in rehabilitation. They were like one of the
Iron
guards.
Men.
So in the episode, they said that one of the first wardens issued like a no talking rule for 2 years. Like none of the prisoners were allowed to talk to each other.
So he's the worst vice principal ever.
Pretty
Yeah.
much. So I think these guys were just hard asses.
They did say something about, for a while, solitary confinement was nude, which
Yeah,
that's bizarro
Yeah, you could
and
have
terrible.
solitary confinement, and if you're even more of a pain to them, yeah, they would you'd be nude, and they'd also take your bedding, so you're literally in a room with no light. for
Yeah, at one
24 hours.
point-
That's like ugh.
in the episode, Robert Stack was in front of one of the solitary rooms and told us that the cell included a 200-pound door that blocked out all of the light. And he also says that if a convict was particularly troublesome, his bed, clothes, and blankets would be confiscated, and he'd have to endure the experience naked.
Well, I hope you learned your lesson for stealing $16.
I know, it sounds awful.
Sleep nude in the dark by yourself.
Just on a concrete floor.
Yeah, it's barbaric.
Well, because it makes it sound like, at least in the past, that it was either, well, the past when this happened, it was either big name criminals or just local people that got picked up. There was no in between. It wasn't like minimum, like there was some minimum security people that just ended up there. due to like.
That sucks.
Right.
So you couldn't even have birds there. Bullshit.
As we learn.
During the 29 years it was in use, the prison held some of the most notorious criminals in American history, such as Al Capone, Robert Franklin Stroud, or the Birdman of Alcatraz, George Machine Gun Kelly, Bumpy Thompson, Rafael Miranda, Mickey Cohen,
And Alvin Creepy Carpus.
Yes, Alvin Creepy Carpus,
Sorry.
who served more time at Alcatraz than any other inmate. It also provided housing for the Bureau of Prisons staff and for their families.
Oh.
So there's kids taking a boat to go to school.
At
from
Alcatraz?
From Alcatraz. They'd take a boat.
Oh, they
and
live in
They
Alcatraz.
were in a school there. They would take a boat to get onto the land to then go to school and then go back onto Alcatraz.
What a horrible place to grow up as a child. Alcatraz?
Can we find one of those people and interview them? That's fascinating. They should have included more about that. Just
Yeah,
your
I had
like
no idea.
childhood at Alcatraz. What was that like?
Oh my god. Feeding pelicans.
Yeah, feeding pelicans around the prisoners who couldn't talk. I need to talk to these people. Please,
find them while they're
find
still
us.
around. Yes.
Find us, people who are children.
I'm
at
sure they're
Alcatraz.
listening to this podcast.
Samantha, everyone listens to this
That's
podcast.
a good point.
I will say the one really positive about this the episode is because the people that were in part of the investigation were still alive when they recorded it. So you get to...
That's
Sure.
true.
It was pretty
all-
cool.
yeah.
They had prison guards who were working there when they escaped, and former inmates, at least one, Whitey.
The one lady / secretary that I'm like, yes, you're awesome.
Yeah, there were some pretty awesome
Yeah.
people in this episode. During its 29 years of operation, the penitentiary claimed that no prisoner successfully escaped. A total of 36 prisoners made 14 escape attempts, 2 men trying twice, 23 were caught alive, 6 were shot and killed during their escape, 2 drowned, and 5 are listed as missing and presumed drowned. The most violent occurred on May 2nd, 1946, when a failed escape attempt by 6 prisoners led to the Battle of Alcatraz, which I think they talked about in the episode, because one of the people who helped Clarence
I
something.
clearly was not listening.
So there was a really bloody escape attempt in which several guards were killed and murdered by prisoners.
Yeah,
And
it was a hostage situation over a couple days.
yeah, I think that's what they're calling the Battle of Alcatraz. I think almost everyone who was involved got sentenced to death, except for this Clarence guy who ended up helping with the escape. We really only ever hear about the one escape, but there was lots of others.
I
Yeah,
learned
lots.
that Al Capone went crazy from syphilis.
I know.
I
That's
didn't
what we're
know
going to
that.
talk about next.
Ooh.
So Unsolved Mysteries talks about 2 of the most famous... it kind of profiles 2 of the most famous prisoners, and the first one was Al Capone. All other prisons, Al Capone was able to bribe staff for special privileges, including carpeted cells, smoking jackets, and a ticker tape machine to help him keep track of his investments.
He was living big.
Could you imagine?
Carpeted cells and smoking jackets. I just like that was his priorities. He was like, I gotta bribe these guards. You know what I need? Smoking jacket. Can't smoke without it.
It's also when I was a kid, I watched Goodfellas, where they have like, oh, the criminals are making their Italian food by themselves and their own thing. I'm like, that's just No, it's not exaggeration. If you had enough money and enough connections,
You can make your own food in prison.
oh no, I'm in prison in my apartment. That's great, awesome. That's a nice way to go. But yeah, like Al Capone didn't he found out. I don't know if he found out there, but they told him like you have syphilis, and he's like, I don't believe you, and he's like, well,
He
you do.
paid-
Here's your
He
medication.
paid other prisoners to take his medication, which
And-
how does that help anything?
It doesn't, because after a few years, the guards started noticing that Capone's brain was suffering the effects of the disease. He would slur his speech and occasionally put his clothes on backwards.
Syphilis slowly eats your brain if you do not get it medically checked into. So
How did they allow him to do this for years until he just died of it?
Well, he shouldn't have been paying. And then what happened to the prisoners that are taking syphilis medication they don't need?
Isn't it just like antibiotics? I
don't
have no
know.
idea.
that's also the thing of like, couldn't they just take it and ground it and put it away? Why did he have to have someone else take it?
Yeah, how
in
does
the
that
first
help?
place?
You swallow this. It'll be gone. I won't just put it in the toilet.
Where
Or just throw it away in my carpeted cell. Would anyone care
Well,
if
he
they're
didn't-
bringing
or
him
just push
smoking
the pill.
jackets?
Well, at Alcatraz, he didn't get those privileges. Robert Stack
Oh.
tells us that at Alcatraz, Capone endured the same Spartan conditions as everyone else. He worked in the prison's laundry facility, folding military and prison clothes for 7 cents an hour.
2 things. Yay, equality of him having to be just in a
Yay,
regular prison.
equality.
Yeah, yay, equality. And 2, first time I hear guys having to do laundry for prisoners.
Oh.
I don't even know that he did the laundry. They just said he folded the laundry.
Well,
But
he got paid to do a job.
That's
it was
true.
his first legitimate job.
I know Robert Stack
7
made a
cents
big
an
deal
hour.
about how it was they tamed Al Capone. It was his first legitimate
He
job.
was also syphilis-ridden and in jail already, so it wasn't like they broke him. He was just there.
Yeah, I don't know that he was tamed, but whatever,
Also, he
Robert
was
Stack.
losing his mind.
Yeah, additionally, other inmates treated him very badly. Frank Henley, a former prison officer, says that they were jealous of his millions of dollars, which maybe they were, I don't know.
Dude, I'm jealous now, so...
Well, yeah, let's talk.
Didn't do him a lot of good, really. Once
He was once stabbed in the prison's barbershop, according to this guy.
He really didn't like his hair.
Maybe,
Did
I don't
Al
know.
Capone cut his hair, and he's like, "You bastard!
Yeah.
Look at these mutton chops."
I do not want a mullet. What are you giving me?
So eventually Capone was completely disabled by syphilis, and he died January 25th, 1947, 8 years after his release from Alcatraz.
Yeah,
Why was he released?
I think he just served his sentence.
He serves time because it was tax evasion. It wasn't for any
Oh,
of the
that's
murders
true.
or anything else. The one thing I remember from one of the shows I actually watch on TV, Drunk History,
I
he
love
was
that show.
so gone at the point, like he was trying to fish in his private pool. Like he would
Really?
get he would try to fish. He's like, I'm fishing, and they're like, oh, it's a joke. No, he doesn't think it's a joke. He
thinks he's really fishing in his pool.
Yeah, thinking, oh, the fishes are going to come in the chlorinated pool I have. So, yeah, he was a little bit gone towards the end.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Also, drunk history. We should be drunk doing this right now.
I mean, we're a little hungover.
Well, yeah, we had a bit of a party last night
Does that count?
in which we exchanged gifts in our Secret Santa, and Rochelle had my name and got me Jazz Loon.
Yes, actually, everyone needs to know that now Samantha has a physical, actual copy
of Jazz
of
Loon.
Jazz Loon, which we also played at our party.
Yeah, Jazz Loon and Jazz Wolf was pretty much playing in the background of the party the whole night.
I would say the best is the reactions of the people that had no idea the context of that. So, like,
assumed-
why
yeah.
are we playing the weirdest
And
shit I've ever heard?
we were just like, it's Jazz Loon.
I assumed everyone
Yeah.
in the group knew it. I don't know why, but
You're like, you don't listen to our podcast. Some
listen to-
friend you are.
You don't listen to Kenny G plus a loon going off every 7 seconds?
several people were like, "What is this?" And we're like, Jazz Wolf. You're being serenaded by the musical stylings of loons set to smooth jazz.
The fusion of human and animals making music together. You don't understand the awesomeness?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, everyone did by the end of the evening.
I
but-
mean, yeah, whether they knew the context or not, they came to love both the Jazz Loon and the Jazz Wolf, the artistic masters that they are.
Truly.
Aside
Little
there.
side combo. There's probably gonna be more of those. So next we detail Robert Stroud, who was known as the Birdman of Alcatraz. He served a life sentence for 2 murder convictions. Stroud spent 2 years in solitary confinement in Leavenworth, where he studied birds and wrote 2 books about their diseases.
What a fun hobby that would be.
Yeah, but he wasn't allowed to do that when he was at Alcatraz.
No.
So he's the
No.
Birdman of Leavenworth.
Did he really have that many birds at Leavenworth?
I believe he had a couple
Did he catch
hundred.
them?
How did he get them? I know nothing. I really know nothing about this.
Pigeoning and keeping, and there's a Burt Lancaster movie that's based on it, and
I mean, I know
One of
some
my favorite-
prisons
yeah.
allow prisoners still today to have pets. They have cats and dogs.
or to care
and-
for something to then
So they were a little bit
ahead.
ahead of their time, I guess, letting this guy have birds.
Yeah, but they essentially did the Birdman of Alcatraz because it sounded cooler.
Yeah, than
more
the Birdman of Leavenworth.
Yeah.
Because everybody's heard of Alcatraz.
Yeah, well, Robert Stack actually says that. He says that the Birdman of Alcatraz had a catchier ring than the Birdman of Leavenworth.
I was just impressed that he had managed to make booze out of birdseed.
Yeah, the reason
Yeah.
he got transferred to Alcatraz was because he was caught distilling birdseed into grain alcohol and
Hell
several
yeah.
other offenses.
I'm impressed, but I'm also not surprised because these are the guys that were there during Prohibition. So they were the guys that knew how to make.
Oh, totally.
Right. They were like moldy old carrots. Yup, I can make booze out of that.
Or like,
birdseed. Yup.
I have a tub. Let's make some moonshine. Let's make this happen.
Uh-huh.
Would
Well,
you drink some moonshine that was made in a bathtub and stirred with a big wooden spoon?
No.
No.
My answer is I don't want to go blind or have a Jimmy leg or all the other things from one of those books we've read like a couple months ago.
What book was that? Was that the Poison Book?
The Poisoner's
Handbook by, I can't remember the author. We read that.
Somebody awesome. Don't worry about it.
It's a really good book. And part of it, they talk about, a lot of it really is about prohibition and people poisoning themselves on homemade alcohol.
Or trying to use like rubbing alcohol and realizing that's not the same alcohol in there and it's going to make you go blind.
Yeah, or give you that weird leg thing.
Jimmy leg thing, which I didn't realize was then kind of like a weird action that they ended up using in cartoons later on.
It has some racist origins as well. I don't really remember.
Yeah,
but moral of the story is know what you're doing if you're making homemade alcohol.
Also Prohibition, a lot of people learned how to make alcohol because there was no other option.
Right.
A friend of mine once made alcohol out of pine needles.
Really?
And I drank it.
What did it taste like?
Pine
needles?
Kind of bitter.
Gross.
Like really bad gin.
Oh. Why would you want to do that? Just because you can?
I don't know. I don't have a good answer to that question.
Peer pressure and it was alcohol?
I guess.
Oh, no, I wanted to taste it because she
I
made
would
it
taste
herself.
it. Yeah, I just don't know why
but-
you would make it in the first place.
Yeah, just, I don't know.
Because you can, I guess.
Yeah.
So Al Bloomquist,
In case everything goes down, you're the person that knows how to make alcohol.
well,
Gather the pine needles, folks.
You never know. It could be Prohibition number 2 in some
Yeah.
capacity. Yeah.
Yeah,
Who knows?
maybe that's coming.
Al Bloomquist, former prison officer, describes Stroud as surly, quiet, and morose. He did very little talking. Very few of the inmates talked to him, and most of them didn't even like him. Frank Henley comes
Sick
back.
burn.
Yeah, he's kind of nobody's friend.
He was kind of a dick.
He
and no
sounded
one
like
liked
a
him.
surly guy. Like I don't think he really wanted
The
to get along with
birds were his
people.
friends, and they took away his birds. So what did he have to
I mean,
live
it's
for?
kind of his fault. He had a good thing going, and then he decided to use the birdseed to make alcohol.
Oh, it was so tempting, just sitting
Yeah.
there being grain,
They're just
not
waiting
being alcohol.
not being alcohol.
and having access to it. Come on now.
Henley says that Stroud was a very intelligent man with only a third-grade education. He could read and write in about 3 or 4 languages. But he was also psychotic, very demented, and at most times was difficult to get along with.
I don't know why I just burst out that the total way you just said. But he was also psychotic.
Yeah.
Side note:
Side note.
before you become friends with the Birdman of Alcatraz, he is psychotic.
Yeah,
So he's like Moriarty from Sherlock Holmes.
potentially.
Yeah. Just say.
You say that about everyone, Rochelle.
Yeah, everyone's like Sherlock Holmes. I can find a way to tie it to anything. Batman, I can tell you why it's Sherlock Holmes. Iron Man,
If
why not?
only that's what this episode was about.
Yeah.
If there's
Have you considered doing a podcast about Sherlock Holmes?
No.
Why not?
You should. Listen,
Otherwise-
podcasting is not hard.
Yeah, it's really
we can
not.
do it.
These suckers are listening to this right now.
I don't think so.
Oh man.
We'll see.
Keep it in mind. So Frank Henley had a lot of odd habits, or Frank Henley says that Stroud had a lot of odd habits. He would often walk around in his cell quite naked, according to Henley, and shave every hair off his body. And these are some of the reasons that he was different from other inmates.
That's totally a power move, by the way.
Walking around naked?
Sure.
Yeah, it's
I suppose.
one, he's in a cell, so it's not like anyone's going to beat him up for doing it. He's just being like, I can do this. I don't know if it's for the other prisoners or for the guards to
Just
be
to
like,
make them uncomfortable.
Probably.
Yeah.
just to offset them a
Or
little bit more.
to prepare for when he's in solitary confinement and they take his clothes away anyway.
Maybe. Because Robert Stack said that they wouldn't allow them to take cold showers because they were afraid that they would acclimate themselves to cold water. So maybe they just walked around naked to acclimate themselves.
Yeah.
Or he was just a nudist.
Or maybe he
Yeah.
was just losing his mind.
Oh, I can't wait till we get to that episode of Unsolved
The
Mysteries.
nudist colony? I think that's in the next season, isn't it?
I know. And I wish we were doing that one right now.
I know. There's the reenactments in that one. Although the reenactments in this episode are
Actually,
pretty good.
Solid reenactments.
I
for this.
will say the production value on this episode is good.
They clearly went all out.
We're giving it shit because we don't care about Alcatraz as a story, but
It's well done.
yeah, I would say. So now we're getting to the escape.
Dun, dun, dun.
Which is the biggest chunk of this episode. So Don DeNevy, Egghead, comes back, and So DeNevy co-wrote a manuscript with Clarence Carnes, who I mentioned before, who had participated in that previous escape.
Escape from Alcatraz.
Yeah, the Battle of Alcatraz or whatever. He was sentenced to life for the murders, where his co-conspirators got death. And he ended up being a co-conspirator in the famous escape, and he was later convinced that the 3 made it safely to shore and successfully escaped. Carnes passed away a year before the Unsolved Mysteries episode, but Denevy is on the show to say that he shares Carnes' belief that the three escaped. He really has nothing to go off of it. He says, these guys made it. They made it because Clarence said they did, and I trust that.
Yeah, well, that doesn't convince me at all. I didn't know Clarence.
Yeah, well, this is the thing that I wrote down about this guy, is that he seems like the classic conspiracy theorist where every piece of evidence, whether it's positive or negative, points to his being right. Like, he says that the Bureau of Prisons says that no one escaped Alcatraz. Well, why would they admit that? And it's like, dude,
This doesn't prove anything.
it does
It's also
not.
like the prison closed a year later, so it wasn't like, oh my gosh, they had a huge an ego thing for keeping Alcatraz as it is.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was on the decline anyway.
They had no reason to lie about these guys escaping or not.
Yeah, and also he's like, well, they said no one, but they were people that escaped, and there's like 5 or 6 people that are still declared missing but presumed drowned
Right.
from the escape attempts.
So technically,
like,
no one has escaped. If you're presuming that these guys are dead, then yeah, you're going to say no one's ever
Also,
escaped.
who calls the Bureau of Prisons and is like, hey, how many people escaped from Alcatraz?
Listen, Don has called the Bureau of Prisons several times.
He
and it
keeps
has
getting the same answer. And it
has
just
annoyed Carol, who answers the phone every time. Yes, yeah.
You know,
that's
Carol
great.
is a saint. She's answering the
Yeah.
phone like, yes, Don.
Yes,
Yes,
Don.
Don.
I have the same answer for you.
same answer as yesterday and every day before that. No one has
It's not
escaped.
gonna change.
No one has escaped from
Show us
Alcatraz.
a body for proof or something. No.
Yeah,
okay.
just the fact that Clarence, your BFF, thought that they escaped and lived doesn't mean that it's true.
And also, Clarence, he's trying to make his story sound good.
Yeah.
And that's assuming that he told you the truth in the first place.
Well, yeah, he's trying to conflate the fact that he was involved in this huge story. And he was in prison still.
But he was
Like,
involved in 2 stories, but still not the main character in either of them.
right. So I think he was trying to make himself seem more important than he
And
was,
also
probably.
sell some books.
Also that.
It's not a great book if it's like, and then they drowned.
We all also
Yeah.
know that this was before the Son of Sam laws, right? Where you couldn't profit off of your
yeah.
crimes if you were in prison. So maybe he was planning on getting some money off this. Anyway, Clarence was a popular inmate because he had access to a lot of resources since he worked in the prison library. He was invited to participate in the escape, but he was under so much scrutiny from the guards that he declined. Apparently they would do shakedowns, and they would often shake down his cell more than others.
Here's
because
the easiest one to...
He was the easiest one to
I
target.
like that they let him still have that job.
Yeah.
But they were very suspicious of him. Like, they let him work in the prison library.
We
but
know
they're
you're
like,
shady, and we know
we'll
you're...
keep shaking you. I was like, just hire someone to do it. Like, why
Yeah.
let a prisoner do it then if you're worried about that being used for communication?
The inmates seemed like they got a lot of freedom.
Yeah, I was actually not very impressed. The more that we learned about the security at Alcatraz and how this escape happened, I was like, how did more escapes not happen?
I think it's very much falls in, like, Alcatraz kind of has persona of kind of like, oh, it's impenetrable. Kind of like the Titanic was unsinkable. Like,
That's
Yeah.
true. They probably thought, well, we're surrounded by essentially
Yeah.
the world's biggest moat.
yeah.
No one's going to escape.
Which we keep telling people is full of sharks.
Yeah, to have tons of cement, like, no one can get out here. It's kind of crappy, anytime to try to get here on boats. So we're good. Yeah.
So we'll
but
just
you're
let
building
prisoners
from the
hang
30s.
out blankets so we can't see what they're doing and hang out in there for months.
Well, and the other thing that they said was that they assumed that no one would be able to get out. So the outside of the prison, like, wasn't monitored at all.
Yeah, it wasn't monitored at all. There wasn't, like, they didn't upkeep or add on to any of the stuff since when they made it an official prison in the 30s. And the thing that I always interesting because prisoners could see that there was cracks and stuff starting to happen in the walls. They knew wear and tear from, like, so if the guards are starting to notice, obviously the prisoners that are spending 23 hours a day in prison cells
Just
are noticing.
staring.
Thinking
like,
about ways to get out.
well, yeah, but like the cement blocks aren't like shattering, but they can see like, hey, there's cracks like where the weaknesses are starting to form.
Sure.
There's a reason why in 63, even regardless of this huge escape, why Alcatraz got closed.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
deteriorating. So another guy, Alan West, was a close friend of Clarence Carnes. He was assigned to paint the top tier roof of the prison and the ceiling of the cell block. One day while he was working, he discovered a way to access the roof of the prison through a ventilation shaft. There were crossbars in the ceiling that you could not cut through, but if you cut the ventilation duct and shoved it up and out, you would easily be able to create a large hole big enough to fit a person through.
So instead of working on just take the whole little circle out, pop it out.
Yeah, pop it out, and then you got a little manhole to get out. West began planning his escape. He enlisted the help of the Anglin brothers, who had been at the prison for 1.5 years and had a history of escapes from other prisons. Denevy tells us that the Anglins were expert raftsmen because they grew up in the Florida swamps. They knew how to construct rafts and negotiate currents. Are there a lot of San Francisco Bay style currents in the Florida swamps?
No.
Also back then, there weren't a ton of swimming pools. It was like swimming holes. You weren't like professional swimming. It was literally you knew how to float and not drown.
So the Florida swamps aren't like an ocean bay?
They're also not like Olympic style areas that you can just practice
Train,
swimming.
right.
Yeah. No.
Wow. So we shouldn't like conflate the Florida's Badlands swamps to the San Francisco Bay?
They were great swimmers. And they were great rafters.
Okay, sure.
Don't
Dawn.
besmirch them.
Not general statements at all that are, not biased.
No.
So then we get Frank Morris, who prison records say had an IQ of 133. His cell was next to West's, and he was brought into the plot because of how smart and charming he was. So
That's flattering for him.
yeah.
Why are you guys letting me in on this? Because you're so smart and charming. Oh, thanks, guys.
I'm sure that's exactly.
I'd be like, hey, you have ideas or this might work, but like.
We just want you on our team.
You're just fun to be around. We're all at the lunch, like mess hall, having lunch.
They held hands and skipped off into the sunset.
Yeah, I just want to eat my orange next to you. It's really fun.
I'm sure that's how it went. So they found a way out of the prison through the roof, but they needed a way to get up there. Fortunately, Clarence Carnes had attempted to escape once before in the Battle of Alcatraz and knew that there was a utility corridor that ran the length and height of the cell block. The corridor contained heat and water pipes that could be climbed like a makeshift ladder. So,
Not a great plan, Alcatraz.
Yeah, no, not exactly.
Climb and hopefully make it.
So Carnes was responsible for delivering books to inmates because he worked in the library, so he was able to pass information from person to person. And also in the early part of each evening, there was a music hour in which anyone with a string instrument could play deafening music.
This is
that
where
wouldn't
Creepy
allow...
Carpus shows up.
Oh, really?
I know because of Creepy Carpus, because we all went to the Landmark Center here in
Yeah.
St. Paul. He was arrested in Minneapolis, St. Paul. He's the guy that ended up training Charlie Manson and some other people, but Charlie Manson is the most known for playing the guitar, which he did his own thing with. But he
went on to bigger and better things.
Wait, so he taught Charlie Manson how to play the guitar?
Yeah. So if
Is that why he's creepy?
No, he's creepy for other reasons. He was from Canada, but he got arrested here, so yay, Minnesota tie-in. But no, he played the guitar, and pretty much anyone that could play an instrument could play an instrument during that hour. That was the only time you could play it, and you were actually allowed access to music, which kind of ties into later with the squeeze box.
Well, it seems like everyone in the prison would play these instruments, and none of the guards could hear anything. So then these three were like using that time to chisel their way out of their cells.
Yeah. Any way to put creepy.
So thanks, Creepy Carpus.
I like that there was a time when they couldn't even talk, but then later they were like, no, you can have music hour.
I don't.
Yeah, you can't talk at all.
So Bill Long, who I wrote down MVM ? Who was the lieutenant on Morning Watch. Do you remember this guy? He had a big white beard that curled up. You could tell it had some mustache wax in it. It was sort of like a...
See, I didn't
like a
have
Colonel
him
Sanders
because he has
type.
a beard, but...
He does have a beard, but his mustache was kind of like a Colonel Sanders.
That's true. He should probably win.
All the other mustaches were kind of cop mustaches.
Yeah.
What did you think of the mustaches, Rochelle?
They were disappointing.
I had nominated the rafters that do the reenactment because 2 out of the 3 of them had a mustache.
It was to keep their lips warm.
If only it had been all 3 of them. But
a trifecta of mustaches.
That would have been great.
3 beards would totally make it work.
Yeah.
Well, we know Liz doesn't like a beard. She wants a standalone mustache.
It's just not. Then it's not a mustache. But this guy with his
still
wax,
a mustache. It's
just silent.
Additional things, I guess.
I don't know. we have different ideas of
what constitutes a mustache. We come from different philosophical backgrounds when it comes to mustache appreciation.
True. Well, Bill/Colonel Sanders doesn't seem like he's super bright. He said that you expect people to escape out the front. It never occurred to me that someone would escape out the back corridor. Like, you were expecting people just to walk past you? Just stroll out of the prison? Of course they escape out the back. No, it seemed like this guy was expecking...
Literally, the prisoners would go, "Oh, excuse me, sir, we are escaping," and then they would.
Could you please follow through so I could go around you?
walk out the front door.
Yeah,
he's like, "Yeah, I never would have expected them to sneak out the back."
It never occurred to me that these prisoners we specifically put here because they've escaped from other prisons would try to escape
in a sneaky way.
What? Yeah, they're also in their prison cell for 23 hours a day.
Yeah, and they've got like nothing else to do except think about how to give you the finger and escape at the same time. I think that he should win MVM, not just for the mustache, but for being such a dullard.
Probably. So between head counts, because there were frequent head counts, West and Morris dug out the back of their cell. West also made false ventilation materials to hide the holes that they were creating.
I thought that was pretty clever.
This is like clever. A very caper, like true life. This is an actual caper kind of thing with it.
Well, so Carnes in his manuscript that Don helped him write says that the flaw in previous escape attempts had been too little planning and too much haste, which I think is a good point.
Sure,
because they spent 9 months planning this escape.
Well, I know there was the escape from Alcatraz, the bigger hostage situation in the 40s, and then this one in the 62. But I always thought that the big one was farther back. So I'm like, oh yeah, 62. I'm like, my mom was born by then. Okay.
Right. It was not that long ago.
So because of the frequent head counts, Robert Stack says that they devised a brilliant plan. They made dummy heads.
This was adorable.
Because the lights were turned down low, it was difficult for the guards to distinguish between fake heads and real heads. So.
I mean, was it? Because they weren't that good.
No.
Better than I could make, but yeah, still not believable.
They just look like creepy puppets almost.
They did look pretty creepy. So Whitey Thompson comes in and claims that Morris asked him how to mix flesh tone paint because he is an artist and did a lot of oil painting in Alcatraz. He also claims that he
compliment on himself.
He put 2 and 2 together and figured out that they were making dummy heads. I don't think that's true. Maybe it was.
Context clue, we're finding out afterwards.
Like, that's why he kept asking me about flesh tone.
I just think that this guy is full of shit. He's like, oh yeah, the 3 came up to me and were asking about how to make flesh tone
because
paint.
They know my paintings are that good.
maybe he was involved.
I'm the best painter in Alcatraz. Like, good job.
I think he's just spinning a legend about himself. But
did any of the dummy heads have a mustache? If so, that's who I want.
Oh my god. Well, they had real human hair from the barbershop.
Ew.
Which was so gross.
Gross. Even worse, they made sure that they had eyebrows and eyelashes. I'm like, please just say you cut like regular hair and made eyelashes. That's very specific.
They held someone down and plucked out their eyelashes for their dummy heads.
That's their worst crime.
Probably. That would be awful. So the dummies were made from soap, concrete powder, and stolen paint. And then an inmate in the barbershop smuggled them real human hair. Robert Stack says to make them look more realistic.
Well, yarn would.
Or they're also in prison for 23 hours a day. They have nothing about it to do with
what else do they get? They have access to hair.
This is their craft hour. Let them pretend.
Well, and they literally use these heads. Like, I was under the impression, I think from the first time I watched this, because I wasn't paying attention, that they only used the heads the night they escaped. They used these every night for 9 months. So that they could sneak out of their cells. So this fooled the guards for 9 months.
Yeah, that's a good job. At least you know it worked rather well.
I guess.
I would, rather than go to Alcatraz, I would like to go to that maritime museum that had one of those heads.
Yeah.
And I just want to go and laugh at it.
So someone made Robert Stack put on gloves to touch these things for once.
I wrote, thank God he's actually wearing gloves to touch these museum artifacts instead of ruining evidence. Robert Stack, I will never forgive you.
In Robert Stack's defense, that guy who was wrongfully convicted in that case would have been wrongfully convicted with or without the evidence that Robert Stack destroyed, but
I still am.
He should have known better.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Robert Stack takes us to this museum where they have all these artifacts. The convicts made homemade drills out of barbershop shears and part of a vacuum cleaner.
Ingenious.
It is thought that they used the drill to get through the duct leading to the roof.
Very MacGyver of them.
Yeah. Those were impressive. He also shows us the heads of spoons that were used to dig through the cell walls. However,
I'm glad someone saved that. That's weird.
They saved all this shit.
Well, yeah, they break the heads off the things and they sharpen the sides and make them kind of like...
Oh, no, that makes sense. But who saved this so it could go to the museum? The guards?
Maybe.
Really nerdy true crime people that wanted to keep that.
Yeah, listen, people like us have been around for ages. So the inmates still had the problem of privacy because they needed to create a raft and life jackets and all kinds of other stuff.
Like, they had a lot of prop making to do.
They had a lot of work.
I swear, aside, if they're not working on getting out of their cells, they are crafting. They're making rafts, they're making head masks.
They did this all without Pinterest, too, which is quite impressive.
That's what's really impressive.
And their limited supplies of being in a prison.
Yeah, exactly.
So they have to use old barbershop
Spit
hair
and
disgusting.
Toothpaste.
Yeah. So they needed privacy, they needed not to be seen. Fortunately, Alan West devised a solution. West was allowed to hang blankets around where he was working on the roof to prevent debris from falling down over the side. This created a handy private room.
Dumb.
Well,
that
that
was
was
used-
because the guards were pissed that, like, it was
Shit kept
going
falling
off.
on them.
And he was like, I could put this here. And they're like, oh, yeah, sure, do
And I
that.
could
He's like, all right, I'll do that.
Put that. I've been working on this for 9 months. Don't mind me.
Yeah, he was allowed to have it for months.
The guards never went up there to see if they were doing anything shady in this little room.
Like, you let them have a room with a door, essentially. Like, a really shitty door, but a door.
Yeah.
You can't see what they're
And
doing. They should have just
That's
hired
probably
someone
not.
to paint their roof.
It's
This
probably
is-
not something nefarious.
Yeah, he's just really thorough at his job. He's just staying in this one cell. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
It's just
how does
very...
it take this long to paint anything?
Oh my god.
It's very OCD. He has to be... Just go over it and then go over it again. It's like the Golden Gate Bridge.
It's not
Starts
like
at
he
one
has
side,
all
goes-
day, every day to work on this.
Oh, yeah.
So the inmates used this privacy to drill out the ventilation shaft and to collect the items they needed for their escape. They would put the dummies on their pillows to avoid the nightly head count and climb up to the room to work. So they also took turns up in this room assembling the raft.
Which they learned how to make from Sports Illustrated.
Yeah,
Or
what is with...
Popular Mechanics. Popular Mechanics and Sports Illustrated. One
Had like some article on how to make a homemade raft.
I just
Popular
wrote down
Mechanics, like, showed how to make it out of, like, what I believe it was what you would use to make it. And then Sports Illustrated had, like, the best different versions.
Oh, okay. Was it like a survival thing?
Yes.
That's what I got the impression.
I just wrote down Sports Illustrated used for evil.
Once again. So.
Yeah, and I was like, not surprised. I knew it.
But the fun thing is they got those magazines from the Alcatraz library. So it wasn't-
Thanks, Clarence.
yeah.
When the time to escape
Also,
finally
why
arrived...
were there so many raincoats at the...
Oh, I don't actually know this.
Oh.
I know something.
Tell us.
Because if they had to like pick up and do outside activities, they were given raincoats, and a lot of times,
Oh.
not that they would hoard them, but like get ripped or whatever else, and they were given out pretty freely from the guards. So people
Mistake.
they literally just would have some of their friends that weren't in on it, but were like, oh yeah, sure, we'll help you. Like, oh yeah, here's one of my coats. Oh yeah, here's another coat.
They made mention of like all the inmates knew that this was going on, and like
Yeah.
none of the guards did. So yeah, I guess that would make sense if they were like, "Yeah, can we collect some of your raincoats?" And people were like,
Well,
"Sure."
It's kind of the prisoner rule of like, I'm not a part of this, but I'm not going to hinder you in any
Oh,
way.
sure.
Yeah, they're not gonna narc.
No, that's not surprising to me. And they did a reenactment of like prisoners passing off raincoats. I was just like, why do they have so many raincoats? But that makes sense if they made them like do work outside.
When it's raining.
Yeah.
Or just also from like the salt water, like
Sure.
hitting the rocks and stuff like that. If
Sure.
they're out there for even just like lifting and moving, like I know they would have sometimes under guard, obviously, but they'd have them like take stuff from the boat, from boats that are delivering stuff and bring it in to the prison.
That makes sense.
Because
Because
it's
yeah, shit
manual
has
labor,
to get there.
and it's manual labor,
It's an
and this is the
So when the time to escape finally arrived, they quietly made the routine trip to the private room. Everyone made it to the room except Alan West. To the private room. Alan West had carved his hole out of his room to the point where all he had to do was punch out the other side. Unfortunately, he didn't know that there was an iron bar that was being used to reinforce the masonry, so he wasn't able to get out. The three men left without him.
But that's got to be a thing. Like they don't have the blueprints, nobody knows. So it's like,
Yeah.
you thought this up. Yeah, you're not going.
Right. Well, and it kind of sucks for him because this was all his idea, but he
Had
couldn't
he
make it
not
out.
gone to the private room before?
I didn't quite understand.
No, I believe he's the only one that didn't have it finalized. So they were waiting for
Okay.
him because because his was like the most obvious to get looked at, even with the head and the other stuff, like just for when he was going to get out.
It wasn't clear to me if he just never went up there, but maybe because he was up there all day that he didn't go up there at night. So
Okay.
because I think
That didn't make sense to me at all. I was like, but they've been working on this and sneaking out for like 9 months.
I was confused about that too, but for some reason it sounded like he didn't go up there
Okay.
after hours.
He was also slightly bigger than the other guys, so he probably couldn't just fit through. It wasn't
maybe.
it wasn't the I won't.
It just
fit
was
through here.
surprising to me that he hadn't tested it before that.
I suppose they couldn't have the biggest holes in the back of their room, so maybe
Right.
Yeah, had to
he
do the
didn't
last.
routinely use his or something.
Or he wasn't, working on it as hard as the other guys at the same time.
Wow.
Don't be a slacker. That's
This
the
is,
moral
this is
of
why
the
you don't get
story.
to drown in the bay.
So they climbed out of the ventilation shaft onto the roof and then climbed down another shaft over the wall of the prison. Ironically, even though security was higher at this prison than any others, it was only high on the inside, not the outside. So no one saw the men climb over the prison wall and go down to the water carrying their raft.
Well, when you have a huge moat everywhere, you don't really need.
Yeah, I guess
4
they
pillars of
assumed.
but you're assuming you at least have somebody looking on the outside once in a while.
Yeah, or one of
Or
those searchlight
lights.
things.
Yeah.
I've watched way too many World War II fake movies of stuff that there should be something on the outside.
Isn't there like a dude in a tower
You're like,
Apparently there
"Hey."
wasn't.
feeding pelicans and just like keeping an eye on things?
I don't
You're
know.
laughing and saying, "I can do this, and the Birdman can't."
Listen,
Yeah.
they didn't notice that there was 3 dummy heads in beds for 9 months.
And they thought people were just gonna go out the front door.
I
Yeah,
just-
so
it's like, oh.
this is what we're working with.
Or also like, "Oh, these guys are just playing with these coats. That's fun." Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do they have a pile of raincoats?
They're crafty. Let them be.
I won't.
They're quiet.
I won't look into it.
So finally, they still had the issue of inflating the raft, but Frank Morris devised a brilliant plan, according to Robert Stack.
This is pretty brilliant.
He used a small accordion as a bellows to inflate the raft, and they launched it into the San Francisco Bay.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I'm not blowing up that raft.
I mean, yeah, they
that would take
basically
too long.
they took all the keys off the accordion, and however that works, I
But
don't
he got
know.
approval to get the accordion.
for music hour.
For music hour, yeah.
It's like, it broke.
So basically, this is where it ends. They say that it remains a mystery. The water would have been around 50 degrees that night. So there's
Yuck.
that.
Cold. Gross.
In the aftermath of the escape, the largest manhunt in U.S. history at the time took place. The authorities believed that the men had been headed for Angel Island. For 42 hours, nothing was found. Then they found a homemade oar floating between Alcatraz and Angel Island. 2 days later, a rubber-wrapped packet containing photographs and a money order that belonged to one of the escapees was found. That indicated to them that the men probably didn't make it. They also found a prison raincoat and pieces of the raft about 10 days
Yeah.
later.
I think the raft broke up.
I really do too. The other thing is that the day after the escape, a Norwegian ship spotted a body floating 20 miles past the Golden Gate Bridge. They were unable to retrieve it, but they described a man that matched Frank Morris, including the prison clothes he was wearing.
And see, that makes sense because out of, the 4 guys before the one guy could not go with on the little trip, only the brothers were known as decent swimmers.
Yeah.
So if it
From
was
there.
going to be one of them that didn't make it no matter what, just
Probably
by default, like action movie rules, it'd probably be that guy.
Yeah. And at the beginning of the episode, the one guy who was in charge of the search said we expected to find a body, but then 14 times in this episode they talked about how strong the currents were, and it goes straight to the ocean.
Yeah, I don't.
And if you're going to find a body,
And
it wouldn't be
someone
right
saw
away.
a body.
Yeah, there was a
Yeah.
body the next day. I
They
mean,
just weren't able to retrieve
it's
it.
a little too much of a coincidence.
It's not like someone else was reported lost at sea or something. So
And it wasn't just like, oh, it's a white dude. So, like, no, this was the scrub.
Yeah,
okay, that's
it's
the correct
very
details.
specific description.
Right, and it's not like, presumably
So-
they see bodies floating by every day.
Right. I would hope not.
So the day after these guys escaped into the water, I don't know. The other thing is that they estimated that the earliest the men could have gotten into the water would have been 10:30 p.m. The strong outgoing tide begins at 10 p.m. The FBI believed that they were taken by the currents to the Pacific Ocean. And honestly, that's my theory. I don't know about you guys,
What a
but
nightmare.
I know. I remember talking to
They should have
Travis
just
once.
stayed at Alcatraz and made crafts in their private room.
They should have,
Yes.
yeah.
That would have been a better time than
I've heard one
dying in the
theory, and I
ocean.
feel like this might have been from Travis or some documentary he watched, where they think that it's possible they might have tied their raft to a boat that was leaving that night. Have you heard this?
No.
And like got a tow or something.
I've heard the theory that like they had a friend or somebody that
Pick them
from the
up.
outside
Pick them
picked
up. Bumpy arranged for them to be picked up, I think.
Yeah.
That was one of their theories.
I think that would just be so hard to arrange.
Yeah, I really don't
The
know.
timing on that?
Yeah, but you also got to figure this is all they do.
No, yeah, but they don't. Their
Yeah.
contact to the outside world is limited.
And
to
also hoping
set
that
up the timing
contact-
of it.
and also hoping that the contact actually
Actually
follows
does
Comes
it.
through.
It was also, they made a point of saying it was pitch black. So you would have had to find these people swimming in the pitch black bay. So there's limited evidence to suggest that they made it. The day after the escape, a man claiming to be John Anglin called a San Francisco lawyer known to represent Alcatraz inmates. The call was transferred to a lawyer named Eugenia McGowan. She says that the man wanted a meeting with the U.S. Marshal. She refused to do it because the man would not tell her why. He hung up and never called back.
She was my favorite person.
She was great. Yeah, she
Like,
was so sassy.
Yeah, he just told me not to, and he just hung up.
I was like,
let's
fuck
do
you,
something.
tell me why. And he just hung up.
Well, he was basically like, tell me why. Don't worry about it. Just do it. No.
No, I'm not going to do that.
I also don't need to. And then they didn't even say something like, I'm this person. Don't you know who I am? No. Well,
She
look
was
at the
great.
news, and then hung up. I'm like, that's very much someone read the newspaper and decided.
It sounded
to
like a
call
prank.
Yeah.
Why would you ask for a meeting? They're just going to send you back to prison.
Yeah.
What are you going to convince the U.S. Marshals to let you be free? That made no sense.
Yeah.
No.
So I don't believe that story.
But she was a sassy Migu, and I loved her.
She was
her
great. She
little
was
bit.
also the only woman in the whole episode.
Aside from the woman that got to watch the people later on.
She had
There's
some
two.
good commentary. I liked her.
Yes.
But otherwise, it was all dudes in this whole
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah.
Clarence Carnes claimed that he received a postcard from the escapees that contained a prearranged code word that confirmed their success. Do we?
No, I don't buy it.
Do we buy it?
No.
Not
You know
really.
why? Because I sent him that postcard.
Or because I too am in from the future, but I still think it's somehow connected to Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, lots of films have drawn inspiration
Yeah.
from this story. And it's a good story, but I think it's just that, a
It's
story.
just a story.
Clarence believed that the inmates received help on the outside from an inmate named Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson. Clarence claimed that Bumpy arranged for a boat to go out and pick up the men, but no one knows if that was true or not.
I would be... if I had a cool name like Ellsworth, I would not want people calling me Bumpy.
Just the weirdest nickname ever.
Bumpy in the night, Bumpy and Creepy hanging out, and
Yeah, Bumpy and
Alcatraz.
Creepy. Terrible nicknames. I mean, honestly, if there is one way that these guys made it, it would have been if they got picked up. I don't
Yeah.
believe that they swam across. I don't believe that they could have survived in that water.
Because swimming,
You would have to train for it, and they
you have
couldn't.
to train, and you also have to have nothing. Like you wouldn't even bring the photos or anything. with you.
Right.
So the fact that you have an oar and you have a raft, it means you're either going one way or the other.
Yeah, they weren't trying to swim for it. They were trying to raft
Raft
out
it.
there, and the raft broke up. So,
Yeah.
anyway, the last part of this episode is the Unsolved Mysteries investigation. This is the MythBusters style.
Reality show. Our little watch
get-
this happen.
There's a blimp. Robert Stack has an
second
earpiece.
host.
yeah, he has an earpiece. He looks like he's gonna
He's-
We have
like
correspondence for this shit.
Yeah, because Robert Stack was like, I'm not going by that freezing cold water that you claim doesn't have sharks in it. No thanks.
So authorities believe that the men used an issue of Sports Illustrated that contained an article on a makeshift flotation device to model their homemade raft.
Sports Illustrated is the tool of not the devil, but something evil.
Yeah, it is. So Unsolved Mysteries used that article to create a similar raft out of raincoats and asked experienced kayakers to test it. This woman who was like a famous swimmer at the time, I don't remember why they brought her in, other than she made a good host.
She was,
Yeah.
yeah. She called Robert Stack Bob, though, and I was like, that's so
It
weird.
was really weird.
Check
kinda-
yourself.
That's kind of
Back to you, Bob.
I don't like calling him Bob, but I like the move of like, oh, hey Bob.
Yeah.
They were apparently
We're
really
fine.
close.
You know, he was like, I don't like that.
Don't call me Bob,
No,
Susan.
no, he's one of those where you know I don't like that, and I'm not going to bring it up, but I don't like that.
Maybe that's why he wouldn't go down to the shore.
Yeah,
Over to you,
she's
Bob.
over there calling me Bob. Oh my god.
Anyway, so she interviews the kayakers before they take off. They claim that the only thing they can't accurately duplicate is the time of day. However, one of the kayakers then tells us that it's to their advantage because they can see what they're doing. And also,
Sure.
we have already been told that at night there was a powerful receding tide.
So it's not really
Yeah,
the
it's not
same.
really the same. Effectively,
Because
it's
they're like, we can avoid, what was it?
The leg-breaking rocks and
Oh,
the
yeah.
swirling eddies.
Yes.
So
They could
clearly,
actually see,
you
so
can
that's
actually see,
helpful.
yeah.
it's not a one-to-one
The
comparison.
and the tide's different.
And I do believe this was referred to when MythBusters later on does theirs as well, because at the time they weren't hugely. They did the same like format, like same shape of the boat and the same like design and everything except for the adhesive. So that's why MythBusters had to do their version because they didn't have the exact parameters for even making the boat.
I was gonna go back and try and watch the MythBusters episode, but they took MythBusters off of Netflix, and I
Thanks for nothing.
didn't know where to
Netflix.
find it. I looked on YouTube; they didn't have that episode up, so I didn't rewatch it. But I seem to remember that the MythBusters were successful, weren't they?
They were
With their raft?
successful, but it was a pain, and I believe only one of them. I believe only Adam Savage is the one that did it, and he couldn't.
Totally.
He's like, I could do it if you had to, but
maybe
within a
it's
time constraint, like because he did the raft style, he went on the boat and did it the whole way. He's like, this took me a couple hours, and I'm pretty fit. If these are dudes that did not have like physical activity time to like work out or do anything,
Yeah, they were
then
spending
suddenly-
9 months crafting. They weren't They weren't pumping iron.
Well, they were getting some muscle movement going on, but not enough like rowing and don't. Yeah,
Collecting the hair.
like in the hand. Well, they're also that motion of chiseling and moving
That's
stuff
true.
around.
That's
but
true.
also,
Yeah, but they weren't training for this. And
No.
yeah, and
That's the thing that makes me really think they couldn't have made it.
No. So this was quite the production. There was a blimp. They had multiple boats, paramedics standing by. They had earpieces. And I wrote down, Dave is in a Speedo.
Yeah, nice Speedo, dude. Also, the aqua socks, the neon shoey things he had on so he could step on the rock. I kind of think he should have worn a wetsuit, but okay.
Yeah, he wore a Speedo. Also, and I don't want to be mean about this, but...
dad bod.
Yeah! You knew exactly what I was going to say. I'm like, this guy's a marathon swimmer? He has a beer belly. I don't understand.
People are always
Marathon-
telling me that swimming is a great way to work out, and now I don't believe it at all.
Well, it gave me hope. I'm like, if Dad Bod can make it across the San Francisco Bay, I can probably do...
He trains and does that all the time. He finds freezing cold waters to swim in. It's his
They
hobby.
found a fucking marathon swimmer to recreate these average Joe prisoners, but...
I think we were also used to like Michael Phelps style swimmers,
Yes.
or like you're just like.
Fitness has changed a lot in the past couple decades.
Well, yeah, obviously because we just learned what jogging was in the 70s.
Right. Well, women weren't even allowed to run marathons until the 70s because they thought
Their
that
uterus
your-
would fall
would
out.
fall out.
Oh, they also
What?
No, most things, trains, bikes. A lot of reasons was pretty much because your uterus will fall out.
Can you imagine if your uterus actually
These were
fell
people
out?
that were like, first of all, that had never happened once. Never, ever. Women were like out on the frontier, like doing
Yeah.
hard labor.
Their
Having
uterus,
birth out
No one's
before.
uterus ever fucking fell out.
their uteruses stayed where they belonged.
And I was like, oh, but we can't have you run, sweetie. Like, what?
Can't run.
These were
can't be on a
doctors.
bike.
These were medical professionals.
Yeah.
It hurts my brain so
Don't
bad.
worry, I'll give you a list of more things that you couldn't do because uterus fall out or you go insane
Well,
as a
yeah.
woman because you can't handle the
It's
stress.
only slightly better now.
That's true.
But it's actually, I don't want to run ever, even if someone is chasing me to murder me. So maybe I should just use that excuse. Like, I can't.
Can't run, my uterus will
My
fall
uterus
out.
will fall out. Unless I'm late for a bus, I'm not running anywhere.
So Dave wears an underwater microphone. Dave takes off and makes good progress. The rafters, on the
Dave.
other hand, make almost no progress. They slowly kick around the rocks like small children on floaties, is what I wrote down.
Pretty much, but it's also 3 people who are trained that are actually rather good at it.
Yeah, and they could, like, barely get anywhere.
They honestly remind you. Did either one of you take swim lessons where you had those like
Yes.
red, flat, floaty things that you
The
would hold on to?
kickboards.
Yeah,
Yes,
kickboard, and then you would
kickboards.
kick across the pool.
Yes.
That's literally what this looked like.
Yeah.
It was not like a raft, like they were sitting on it and dry. Like, yeah, they were all holding onto it and kind of
Doggy
paddling.
Just slowly around
Slowly
Alcatraz.
around Alcatraz, stuck in a current.
Well, this helps prove for me, like, for people you can fit them on the raft. If they're doing it that way, where it's kiddie paddle kind of style, someone's gonna quit.
Yeah.
Pretty much soon after that, and then you're gonna be pissed off, and you're gonna have a fight. And
That's
then
how Frank
either-
Morris drowned. He was like,
Yeah.
peace out, I'm not doing this.
Or you're like, you're not doing your job, Frank Morris. Get
Kick
off the
harder.
Kicked off. Yeah, kicked off. Get a fight, and then hypothermia
He's like-
from one of them.
You see this bag of your cherished family mementos? Get it! You just like throw it into the ocean.
Useless to us now.
Yeah.
So at this point in the investigation, like they just had to fill time because I think maybe it was live. Like
Yeah. It looked, because at least the intro and part of it, I don't know if it was like split up of 2 episodes put together, because there's such good reenactments that were like a whole
Yeah.
thing, plus probably like an hour. That was
Yeah.
like why we got condensed version cut of the, yeah, he's still swimming.
He's
Still
still swimming. Yeah, so they followed the swimmer in a boat, and the woman who I think was some sort of famous swimmer gave us a bunch of commentary. She did a good job, considering she just had to fill a bunch of dead air. I thought she talked about her theories about whether or not they escaped or not. And then Robert Stack interviews a marine biologist to ask if there were sharks in the bay. It was really stupid and clearly just meant to take up some time. The guy was like, "No, there's not sharks. You're gonna die of hypothermia before a shark eats you." You could tell this guy was just over it. He's like, "Why did you bring me out here
You
to tell
also
you
know
this?"
it's something he's been asked tons of times.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
not like they're not from there. It's just like, it wouldn't be out to the ocean. Why would they come into the
Why would
bay?
they'd be in the ocean where they belong, Robert Stack. No, there's not sharks. But yeah, they spend like 5 minutes talking about that.
It's not feeling the love of Robert Stack.
Yeah.
I guess. So then they tell us about some more escape attempts. I didn't take notes about these because this is a 2-hour episode and I was just getting tired.
I mean, I'm really impressed with the notes that you took. So thank you for doing all that work,
Well, that's
because
But so they talked about a bunch of other escape attempts that I think were famous. None of them were successful. Some more people drowned.
it was, yeah.
Some people got shot. I don't know. No
They're
one made
dead.
it off.
Yeah.
We finally get back to the commentary in the bay. The rafters make a little progress, but then the current and the traffic in the bay, plus seals, I guess, set them back.
She said that was amusing.
Yeah, she was amused by the seals. The seals are probably coming up being like, what the fuck, guys?
It's still there, but it's also like, if this was a live event, people knew what was going on.
Well, there was a
People were coming to actually see you guys do this.
This is why
Oh
I
my
think it's
gosh,
kind of
there's
silly
traffic.
that they say that the only thing they can't duplicate was that it was at night. There was like giant barges and boats that were creating wakes. Like this
Yeah.
is nothing like it would have happened that
Yeah.
night.
It was dead silent, and also
Do you
No.
think the prisoners hopped on the back of seals? to escape?
Road to safety.
Yes, to get to Angel Island.
I
That's
like
my new
this
theory.
what about Birdman somehow getting birds, convincing them to talk?
He traded an
Communicating with the birds.
He traded an
get-
actual Alcatraz to swoop in and pick them up.
I think we cracked it.
Yeah.
We may
Take
have.
that, all you white men that were interested in this. We solved it.
So the rafters give up. They report that they are comfortable in the water, but they can't get anywhere. And then the guy says that their raft is basically falling apart, and that they don't think. Yeah, they don't think that the convicts would have made it. They said that unlike the prisoners, they're wearing modern clothes and are attempting the journey during the day.
So a lot of things weren't the same.
Yeah.
I loved how they just left this guy in the water for this interview. Like they couldn't pull him out
So
of the boat.
how's it going down there?
And he tells him his whole theory about how he doesn't think that these guys could have made it. I'm like, let him get out of the water.
No, he lives there now.
But the swimmer did. So it was interesting to see one of them be like, oh yeah, I totally can see how they can make it.
Yeah,
'Cause
Dave.
if Dad bod can survive, why can't anyone else?
Dave does pretty well. Although he gets a leg cramp, he eventually makes it to the out of the water to applause. Apparently, after a swim like that, he puts on running shoes and goes for a run.
Yeah, this guy is my total opposite.
So he reports that the swim was very cold and that partway through
Embracing.
his entire leg cramped and went numb, but yet he still thinks that they could have made it. He says there's no question in my mind that they could have made it. The question is how they would have felt afterwards. I'm like, okay,
Also,
marathon swimmer that
He's
got a
been
leg
in
cramp.
freezing cold water. His mouth is like half frozen. He's not making sense.
Yeah,
That was my reaction. I was like, yeah, it's just how they would have felt. If that what? No.
Yeah.
They're dead.
He barely made it, and he's a marathon swimmer. So, these people...
Here's the answer. I know why he was doing a marathon. He was doing a marathon at that moment.
Oh.
Because each year, hundreds of athletes, at least back in the day, because this was from... athletes participate in the Escape from Alcatraz triathlon, proving that with training and proper gear, it is possible to swim from Alcatraz and survive. First held in 1980, includes a 1.5-mile swim from San Francisco, plus an 18-mile bike ride and an 8-mile run. So they pretty much just filmed the guy going to do that.
So people do that all the time. People who are trained in
Trained
shape.
to do it.
Why
Yeah.
would you want to do that? Okay,
I have no
If
idea.
anyone listening to this has done that, please get in touch. Let us know how it was.
And what would possess you to do such a crazy thing?
First of all, why'd you do that? Also, did you see any seals? Also, do you think that untrained people escaping from Alcatraz that have
Untrained
been
people that have
drinking birdseed liquor and working on craft for 9 months,
And hanging out with people named Creepy and Bumpy.
would they be able to escape?
I really think, and how many times have I said it on the show that the simplest answer is true? The raft broke up, they got hypothermia and drowned.
Yeah.
They didn't.
It's not a glamorous. It's much cooler to think that these clever bank robbers who came up with all these sort of ingenious little tricks, like making fake vents and whatever, that they would be able to escape. But then they just went on to normal lives and never committed any crimes again.
That's the thing that the kayaker, when they were interviewing him when he was half in the water still, said these were career criminals. You would have think that they would have committed another crime and got caught at
Or
some
not
point.
even that. Like, it's kind of like the mystery of who was Deep Throat for the longest time. But then finally, when the guy was his deathbed, he admitted it. As soon as you admit...
It's not that interesting.
Oh yeah, the reason that the story is so prolific.
But there's also no reason, like, one of the three guys, if they would have survived, even if it was one of them, would have told somebody.
Oh,
at
yeah.
some
Eventually
point.
be like, hey, by the way, that was me.
a deathbed confession for sure.
I escaped on it by writing a seal.
We just hooked some seals up to our raft, like
And
sled
drinking
dogs,
birdseed oil.
and they took us
Why
across.
wouldn't that work, huh? Prove to me that's not what they did.
This is why we'd never be able to escape from prison.
No, but we would have a good time sitting in our private room making crafts and telling stories about possible ways we could escape and then never doing it.
If that's how prison was, if we could just hang out with our friends in a private room and do crafts,
and make a podcast.
That's
Prison cast?
pretty much what we do anyway. So
Do that already?
Yeah.
we might as well do it.
We
in
might as well
prison.
do it in prison where there's no rent and we get free food.
Yeah, it doesn't sound that bad.
But that's not what prison's like.
No, it's not what prison's like at all.
Unfortunately.
So that's the episode. I think is it safe to say that our theory is that they...
Seals.
So Liz thinks they escaped via seals. I think they drowned. Rochelle, what's your hot take?
I have a hot take now on this? Okay, yeah.
We brought you all
We
about
brought
hot
you
takes.
on the show to have a hot take, Rochelle.
Aside from pelicans, or... the only way they could have made it and survived is if they had a ride. If they would have had an
If
outside
Bumpy
connection
came through.
and somebody actually did something. Did that happen? Very unlikely, because they made a life raft. They're not... You wouldn't...
Yeah.
Right. Why couldn't if they were going to get a boat, why couldn't the boat just come to Alcatraz?
You're still
Right.
going to have to be on the rocks, and they still aren't looking for you out there, so that's just an extra step you wouldn't need to take.
Right.
So obviously Bumpy didn't, provide that service. So
That's a good point.
yeah, if they weren't in there and they had no water and they were able to row, that's fine. But they found one of the two oars that they had. They
found a dead body.
they essentially
Yeah.
found a dead body, and they're fucking dead, you guys.
Yeah.
They're
I don't really think they rode seals.
I thought you did for sure.
They didn't go down in the underwater world with little Ariel and the Little Mermaid.
I mean, it's a nice idea.
Yeah.
That's
Don't get me wrong.
our
No,
theory.
and everyone likes an outlaw, so you want them they kind of stick to
But
their
you mean,
idea,
if
they
these guys are
survive.
just bank robbers, I mean,
Yeah.
victimless
Yeah.
crime.
It is. It's a good story, and you could see how people want to believe. It's just like DB Cooper; they want to believe that he survived.
This is very
Or Jack
similar
the
to
Ripper.
the boring DB Cooper story.
No, yeah, similar, but I do it Jack the Ripper because there's pretty much you can pick whatever you want to happen.
Because no one's ever going to know.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Choose your own adventure.
Well, if Egghead Mick whatever, dude.
Whatever. That's his name.
I'm good with names.
Don
But
Denevy.
he can basically twist whatever you're telling him. But no, but this is what I would think it is.
That's true.
He's
Sure.
it's
You're
evidence no
believing-
matter what.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that they didn't find a body is evidence they escaped, and the fact that they
Did find one.
we never
yeah.
found them again is evidence. You know,
Or the pictures in the money order check that they put out there intentionally, or maybe they forgot it. yeah, you're telling me all the different ways that could happen, but
Doesn't
that
prove
doesn't
anything.
prove anything either
Yeah,
way.
right.
So.
Yeah, exactly. So, should we rate this episode?
I mean, I think it's pretty clear what I'm going to say. But yes, let's rate it.
So, our categories that we can give either a thumbs up, thumbs down, or thumbs sideways start with mysteriousness. How mysterious do you think?
I guess it is kind of, I don't care. But I guess it is kind of mysterious because we don't know.
That's true.
Even with
we don't have an
their
answer.
Mythbusters segment, we don't really know what happened. So I guess thumbs up.
Do you give it a thumbs up for mysterious?
Or just
Rochelle?
sideways.
I'm sideways because yes, there isn't an answer, but 90% sure they're dead.
That's kind of how I feel. I kind of feel
Yeah.
like, yes, we never, there is still an air of mystery about it, but also when you get right down to it, it seems like they most likely died. So I'm kind of like a thumb sideways, kind of a shaky thumb sideways.
Right. I also don't like that this episode is only one mystery. So that cuts into the mysteriousness of it.
That's true.
Yeah, because they're playing for time, so obviously there's some stuff where you're like,
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
Cool.
So, okay, sideways. I agree.
We didn't spend a lot of time talking about the reenactments, but they were really good.
They were quality. They clearly put a lot of effort into this episode.
it was a special episode.
Well, clearly.
We were exchanging some messages with Josh from the Uncovering Unexplained Mysteries podcast, and he mentioned that this is one of his favorite episodes. And I can see why you would really enjoy it, especially if you're a connoisseur of unsolved mysteries, because it has a high production value.
Yeah.
They put a lot. I mean, the scenes were shot at Alcatraz. Like,
Yeah,
it was
editing,
pretty impressive.
Live recordings of stuff.
Right.
That's probably on prime time.
He
at
was
least back
shocked that we didn't want to do this one.
Yeah, I don't think he really understood that we just don't like the mystery itself. But the episode, I give it credit for being pretty good.
Yeah.
Like the opening shot is from above, like just
Yeah,
kind of
crane
slowly
shot,
circling Alcatraz. Like that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. And yeah, the actors they got were good. They weren't like cheesy reenactments that we're
No,
used to. So
no.
I'm giving a thumbs up for reenactments.
I agree.
Yeah, thumbs up.
That part's
part's
good.
good.
Fashion, I don't.
I
There's really
you
nothing-
just
it's
get
a
Diane.
Zach's turtleneck is pretty much the only good
Yeah, it's kind of a
parts.
nothing burger because it's
Yeah.
all just guys in
No,
suits.
that's a thumbs down. Diane is wearing, who's the female correspondent, was wearing this leather jacket that was like exactly like one my mom had. And
I loved her spiky hair.
Yeah.
that was pretty
Yes.
good.
That's the only saving grace, but everything else is just boring.
Yeah, it was
Boring.
pretty
So,
boring.
thumbs
So I'm a
down.
thumbs down for that, but I think I might be a thumbs up on Robert Stack's
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
He looked sharp
because yeah, he had some good
and was
looks going
enjoying
on.
himself out at Alcatraz.
He was. He like couldn't keep the smile off his face. This
Yeah.
is such an old guy mystery.
Well,
Yeah.
it is because the Birdman of Alcatraz had Burt Lancaster. Then there's Escape from Alcatraz, which I believe has Clint Eastwood in it.
Oh yeah.
So there's this whole
Yeah.
mythos, and then if you don't even go by that, you have Shawshank Redemption that has like later on, like for people that watch the reruns, and then The Rock from the '90s. Dudes are kind of raised to like a prison movie.
oh, for sure.
So I think having a prison mystery that actually has some hijinks and some like crafting, more for us, but crafting and some other stuff,
Yes.
that makes them kind of
Ingenuity.
has the caper stuff you see in an action movie actually happen.
Right.
Makes them excited, but for like, but
For
they
us, we're
fucking
like-
died. Who cares?
We couldn't give a shit, but like all the dudes love this shit.
Yeah.
Which I mean, cool for them. We love stuff dudes don't like, I guess, but I found it a little bit boring. So yeah, thumbs up for Robert Stack.
Pretty boring.
5. Okay, so out of a possible 5 Robert Stacks, Rochelle, do you want to give us your take on what you think the rating for this episode should be? I passed it off to you because I'm finding it difficult. Because while the episode is good, I hate Alcatraz.
I would say a 3.
3 out of 5
good.
Robert Stacks?
I really hate Alcatraz. I'm interested in reading it. I'm like, this is cool. But I'm like, I still don't care.
Can't make ourselves like it.
And it's not even so much the story. Like I can find like, trying to tie pop culture reasons into it, stuff that happened before. No.
Birdseed liquor, syphilis,
Creepy carpets,
madness.
like-
Yeah,
like-
nothing can save it.
Yeah, like even like the worst were there. Yeah, and they were
Sort
just
of.
sitting there like 23 hours a day, hanging out in their cots, waiting for
or
life to
Playing the guitar
pass
for
by.
1 hour.
Yeah. I'm with you,
that-
I think, on the 3 out of 5 Robert Stacks. What do you think, Liz?
1. Because we've been dreading this the whole time. And when I was sitting here watching it and they said, in this 90-minute special, I audibly groaned
Yes.
to no one because it's so
I got
long.
about 2, but 3 just because of the reenactments, and you can tell that
It's
they actually
well
put the
made,
effort.
but it feels like hours.
It was a little bit rough to get through, I'll admit. But I'm not rating it that low.
Break.
You couldn't handle an hour.
I couldn't watch an hour of television. I'm definitely giving it a 1, despite the quality reenactments, despite all of their effort.
Are you saying that without the quality reenactments, it'd be a 0?
Somehow.
Could we do negative Robert Stacks?
It's just, I
No, you
don't
don't
like
take
this
Robert Stack
episode at all. I never want to watch it again.
I'm with you.
I
I'm never gonna watch it
I
again.
hated that we even had to do it.
Here's this. I don't mind the topic. I tried to download a couple books about Alcatraz, and it was basically, here's a series of fiction stuff. Here's one from somebody that got born again Christian after Alcatraz. But there is also, if you go to like the National Park website, there is a PDF you can download that has the whole history of Alcatraz Island plus the prison and the escape from way back in the day from the 1800s.
Wow.
Well, you get to find out, like, a dude, like, bought the island before California was California, then thought he was going to make some money off of it because it was a cool island, and then found out stuff happened. White guy got that stolen from the U.S. government.
Oh.
So it was kind of a reverse of how it usually stuff happens. So that was kind of fun. But I did not read it because when I opened the PDF file, it was 600 pages. So if you are really interested in Alcatraz, you can read that.
Okay, we can link that on Facebook.
That's a good idea. That sounds like a good resource. I just looked at Wikipedia, and even that I only looked at 2
I
paragraphs.
could not even be bothered.
I looked at the PDF file, and it was 8 pages of just like the notes of like the main points. I'm like, I'm bored at this point, so
And I only skimmed it. Yeah, so we can finally put the Alcatraz situation to bed.
That is a.
It
just
feels
you
like a weight has been
saying that,
lifted
yes.
off my shoulders.
I feel so happy about going forward and the other mysteries that we can talk about.
Yes,
and that
let's get back to murders.
we don't have to talk about this anymore.
What about lost? What about treasure? What about treasure?
No treasure.
What about Samantha? Think of all the treasure you have to look forward to.
Never treasure.
And so many lost loves and romances.
I don't mind a lost love. I hate treasure. Would I rather watch this episode or another one on? I'd rather watch treasure.
What if it was 90 minutes of treasure though?
Oh
it was
my
like
God, no.
a whole
I think
episode.
I
of
would
one
refuse
treasure.
to do it.
If it's one of like the heavy hitters of like true crime stuff, I might be willing to. But like, yeah, if it's like
They did like a
just
special
one case,
treasure where they were like, okay, we're gonna go into the desert and try to find it.
No.
And like Robert Stack was like digging with a pickaxe.
we were vaguely like the same age range. Do you remember like the late 90s, early 2000s? They would have those hour specials of like, we're gonna go to Egypt and like
Yes.
dig
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
up. And you're like the first time like, this is awesome, and like the 8th time you're like, why is this on TV? No one cares anymore. Like,
Nothing ever happened. Or did you watch when Geraldo revealed Al Capone's vault and there
With
was
nothing?
nothing in it? They fucking milked that for so long. Like, we're gonna open Al Capone's vault and no one's been in there and blah 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 blah. And
that
then it was
had to have been before this. So this maybe the Alcatraz thing was riding that wave of people wanting to figure that out.
actually that house where that vault is that had nothing is in Max Town. But yeah, it's just like a fucking house. and
They
there's
spent a lot
nothing
of time in this episode talking about Al Capone, so it's possible that they're riding that wave of hype. I don't know. But we're done with Alcatraz.
Yay!
The last segment we do is recommendations. Rochelle, did you bring a recommendation for our listeners?
I brought a recommendation of giving you guys a gift first.
Well, that's exciting.
I like that we made you talk about a subject you hate and we get gifts.
Yeah. Oh, well, one of you can open this.
Liz
Okay.
is
For
gonna
both of
open
you,
it.
it's the same thing, but
Okay. I'll open.
woo!
We made you come on our podcast to talk about something we hate and you also hate, and you bring us a gift.
This is how
yes.
it should be. Future guests, take note.
Just give gifts.
You must bring an offering.
You must bring
Yes.
an offering. Oh my god.
What is it?
They're
Is that-
sweet Robert Stack magnets.
It's oh, hell yeah.
It's just him staring at you with the intensity of
God.
1,000 suns.
To remind you, if you're not thinking about unsolved mysteries when you're in your kitchen, you should date.
Oh my god, and he's wearing the trench coat. This is a
Yes.
serious stare. Holy
Yes.
shit. He's looking into my soul.
He has lasers for eyes.
But you can also see from his outfit that Scruff the crime dog stole his shit.
Oh, totally.
Oh, yeah. This
Totally.
is a Mick look for sure. Thank you, Rochelle. I
This
love
is awesome. Thank you.
He is going to be holding up all my grocery list on my fridge.
What is Samantha going to buy at the store? The real mystery.
No, you should also just randomly add, like, aliens. Like, why? It's awesome.
It's
Robert
a
Stack
mystery.
is here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, thank you, Rochelle.
Rochelle's recommendation is everyone gets a sweet Robert Stack magnet for
Or
their
listen
kitchen.
to podcasts and stuff you like. So, like, perhaps it's you, Dollop, true
Yeah.
crime stuff, whatever you like. there's
Besides this
podcasts.
podcast, which we know is your favorite, what are some of your
Of
other
course.
favorite podcasts?
Um,
You mentioned The Dollop.
The Dollop, we kind of all bonded originally or found each other from liking a true crime podcast before My Favorite Murder.
For the history buffs out there, what do you recommend?
The Dollop, which most people kind of know a little, it's probably one of the bigger
Oh,
ones
yeah, they're
out
hilarious.
there.
I love them.
Dave Anthony and Gareth Reynolds kind of play off each other. One person knows something, the other person reacts. Oh my gosh, it's awesome. There's also another one called Time Suck with Dan Cummins, who's a comedian as well. And does the research himself, does the podcast himself, but he's also a comedian, so he kind of
Makes it funny.
makes it funny. And I don't agree with everything he says, but he's really nice. He's
Does
one of
he
those people
have
that
an
can-
episode about Alcatraz?
Probably. No, but he will. He's early days. He's like less than 2 years, so it's still
Okay.
Okay.
Not
Cool.
There's not
very
1,000 episodes like The Dollop.
Yeah,
I just kind of decided I'm never going to get through all
His
their
is
episodes.
more like picks a topic, goes in on it pretty good, and then instead of like let's find the wacky story, which is kind of what they do a little bit.
Yeah.
And his one thing is he's one of the few people that I don't agree with everything he says, but I don't mind that. Like he's open enough. He's like, this is my opinion, you have yours, so
Yeah.
whatever.
As it should be.
For a white dude originally from Idaho, where kind of have
You have
myself-
different life
yeah.
experiences.
You're like, okay, fair enough.
Oh,
But yeah,
nice.
Though we know everyone agrees with everything we say on this podcast.
yeah.
Always, 100% of the
Because
time.
perhaps it's you. You don't know.
Hell yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for that, Rochelle.
Yes, thanks, Rochelle.
Ooh, okay, cool.
Thanks for those recommendations.
And
Liz,
thanks for coming on to talk about a subject you're not at all interested in either.
Well, we were here yesterday, so yeah.
It just made us do it because otherwise
It's
we
true.
weren't
It
going to
wasn't
do
gonna
it.
we
were
would have
gonna
just
skip
skipped it.
it.
Let's
but
be
then people
real.
would ask you about it, then you're like, it would become a thing, and then you'd have to actually.
I
do it.
feel honestly like relieved that it's over.
Same.
It's like if you have to go to the DMV or something, like you have a chore that you keep putting off, and then when you finally do it, you're like, oh, thank God.
So you recommend to actually do podcasts like that?
Yeah, I guess, if get shit over with, you got to do. Got to go to the eye doctor, just quit putting it off. Fucking do
done.
it. Yeah.
Yep, that's true.
No, my real recommendation I was going to say, if people need something to watch on the old Netflix, because it's winter and you're hibernating and you don't want to leave your house, I just finished watching Shetland and really enjoyed it.
Okay.
It is like a straight up mystery show from Scotland. I really appreciate that there's not like a gimmick to it. Like he doesn't have psychic abilities, he doesn't like use the help of a dog.
He's not in any way related to Sherlock Holmes.
No, he's not using the power of numbers. It's just,
He's
dude.
not using bones.
Oh my God, that
Yeah.
show Numbers was
Which
so
takes-
ridiculous.
Megan, our resident librarian, talked about the show Numbers by saying they took something I like, murder, and they ruined it with something I hate, math. And it's so true. I could never ever get into numbers. But anyway,
Yeah, no.
Shetland is just detective solves murders in Shetland.
So with Scottish accents.
With
Yay!
Scottish accents, the acting is very good. It's very well shot, but it's just like mysteries. And it really hit the spot for me. I'm sad I don't have any more to watch. The stories are good. There's like good twists and whatever. It makes me slightly concerned about the crime rate of the Shetlands. I don't think that's what's so funny about a lot of those. I mean, I love all the mystery shows from the UK usually. But after a while you're like one show makes sense.
Yeah.
But then after a while you're like, wow, the crime rate in this cute little rural town is out of control.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, I love the show Wire in the Blood, which takes place on this fictional town of Bradfield. But apparently Bradfield has like a serial killer a week.
What?
So don't go there.
Yikes.
Because 6 people people die for any crime to get solved, so...
So there's a
It's a little
string
terrifying.
of murders for everything?
Yes, everything is a string of murders because that show is a cop and a psychologist, and he only figures things out from, like, the patterns. So, yeah, basically, like, 6 people have to die for him to solve any case. So you're like, oh, good thing Bradfield's fictional because the crime there is out of control. And I once saw a, like, online comment when I was, like, trying to find more information on the show. Someone was like, I just got transferred from my job to England. Is the crime really this bad? And I wanted to be like, yes. A serial killer will definitely, like, kill you and hang you up dramatically in a church.
You're like, Jack the Ripper was just the beginning.
Yeah.
That's to
wait
prep
till you
you.
get to Bradfield. Anyway. It has a tiny bit of that issue where you're like, I don't think this many murders happen here. But aside from that, I think it's a great show. Enjoy.
Nice. Well, I have 2 Instagram accounts to recommend for you.
Ooh.
The first one is an up-and-coming Unsolved Mysteries Instagram account that I discovered by accident. And it is called,
quote unquote.
it is called Unsolved Ensembles. It's Unsolved, ENSEMBLES. And it is an account that seriously critiques fashion on Unsolved Mysteries. I have one in particular.
Why didn't we start this?
I have no idea, but here's a post about Robert Stack, and it has a picture of Robert Stack in a grassy field,
Oh,
and
that's
it
a
says, "No one walks across a field quite like Robert Stack." I think this look is a bit of a miss for him, though. The tie is too long, and a blazer would have been a better choice than the windbreaker? ?
Let me see the picture
I'm
to
more
see if I
about-
agree.
The first thing I noticed is his pants.
Spot on. Though that tie is way too fucking long. Why is that so long?
It also says the shirt is well tailored around his neck. However, he looks trim in the pleated khakis, though, which is all
the
true.
khakis are also damn near up to his ribs.
Well, it's a little high-waisted, which maybe explains why the tie looks so long.
I think that's kind of just the time.
He always wears pretty high-waisted pants. But yeah, this is a pretty good Instagram account.
I'm
They've not been
so
around-
jealous that we didn't start this. But
I know. They need some more followers. I really enjoyed their Instagram.
everyone go follow us immediately. They're doing God's work.
They really are. The other Instagram account that I wanted to recommend is one that just brings me joy, and it's called Straight Up Cat Leg. And it's an Instagram account that shows nothing but pictures of cats with their legs in the air. And I've
heard you mention this several times, actually. It clearly brings you a lot of joy.
These are trying times. Sometimes I just log on to Instagram and I just scroll through pictures of cats with sticking their legs up in the air.
I'm watching videos of capybaras just sitting in hot tubs.
We
so
all
I
need
get
to find
it.
those pure things in life that are just pure good, and you can just immerse yourself in it for a little while to forget the horrible state of the world. And Straight Up Cat Leg is one that I think our listeners would really enjoy. So go follow these 2 Instagram accounts.
Wonderful.
You can also follow Rochelle on Instagram. Rochelle has a pretty good Instagram. You do a good job on Instagram. I struggle a little bit with my personal account because I just feel like I'm not cool enough to like post anything of interest, but I always enjoy the things you post.
I post pictures of stuff and things. Yay!
What is your handle, Rochelle?
Oh, I have to remember my stuff? Oh, crap.
It's your name. I have it on our Instagram account.
Rochelle,
I posted about you giving me Jazzloon as a gift, so you can go to that post and find the link to Rochelle's Instagram if you'd like to follow her.
Yeah, I do stuff and things sometimes.
That's true. Yeah. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Perhaps It's You.
If you would like to email us a ghost story or
Your
time
experience
you were...
at Alcatraz.
Yeah, that time you were in a weird Alcatraz triathlon for some fucking reason.
No, when you were raised on the island and your parents were really weird about it.
Yes. If you saw a ghost on Alcatraz, you need to email us twice because that story is so awesome. That's Perhaps It's You podcast at gmail.com.
What about if you found a magical rock?
At Alcatraz?
Then you should send it to us.
Yeah.
No. That might change my whole theory. What if they found the magical rock?
At Alcatraz?
And that's how they were able to escape because it changed their fortune for the better. It was one of the rocks at the beach.
Yeah, that's how they got the seals to hear their call. It's like, I will find a way to make this work.
Seals!
So yes, Perhaps It's You podcast at gmail.com. You can support the show at patreon.com/Perhaps It's You.
Give them all the
And
monies. It's fun.
yeah, we need some pod cash so we can build a capybara ranch.
And I need a sweet 80s sports car.
We got plans. So the money needs to start rolling in.
Yeah.
We'll have Rochelle on again to talk about something she actually enjoys. It was
Yeah.
fun having you here.
Yes, thanks, Rochelle.
Yeah, I do think I might have helped the swear words go up like 200%. But yes, aside from that,
We don't have any complaints yet about the swearing,
Okay.
so we're good.
Yeah,
I think we have some room to swear more.
which is great because I've been holding back.
Liz has been holding back. I don't fucking hold back at all. That's all we
All
have
right,
for you folks.
Bye, 5 listeners.
Bye.
Thanks for
Bye.
having me on. Bye.